around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started, it's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started. Yeah,
get your boots ready. We're about to go on a trip where we wrestle, nobody settling or calling it quits. You're here for the grit, betcha this stuff is amazing. You're stumbling? Welcome to the bump in the apron. Step into it, the hardest part of the ring. Here to bring fun, yeah, in this art he is king. It's the best thing, making sure you don't tap out. Don't go soft with the hardest podcast out. And it's not just another one, it's clear. Off the rest, in this content, non-contest. Take the nonsense off the steps. You know it's nothing but pure gems when it's coming off the chest. Get it? Now it's time to sit and relax. Get your mind blown away, ain't no skipping a track. Have you paying more attention, no listening gap. Get everything I ever wanted, no giving it back.
Ooh, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Apron Bump Podcast. I'm your host, the hardest part of the ring, Kyle Bird. I'm laughing, by the way. I'm having myself a giggle because I'm trying to wear this fucking hat. I don't know if I don't remember what episode I was talking about, but I'm trying to become a hat guy, ladies and gentlemen. I'm trying to figure out how to wear hats. I just don't know if I got it yet. I mean, the YouTube audience, you probably get a better perspective. I don't remember if I mentioned this in the last riveting hat discussion. But goddamn, pal, dude, no hats fit me. I mean, look at this shit. Look, I'm gonna hold this up to the camera. Got snapback action going, right? I don't know if it's gonna focus. Here we go. The last snap. I don't know if you can see that, but it's on the very last snap. I put it on, right? Looks like a yarmulke. Jew Kyle in the house. What's up? Have a matzah. You know what I'm saying? Is that Jewish? But yeah, dude, it's just not like little Washington Nationals hat. Went to a little pucker game. You know, that's what we call hockey in the hockey business. Saw some goals, some nets, some zambonis, and all that stuff. So, which turns out is actually used not in a wrestling capacity to storm a ring, which is interesting. So, but yeah, so I got this bright ass red hat on, which by the way just screams, "Hey, this guy got a free hat and doesn't know what hockey is." But that being said, I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out, gang. But I'm stalling, by the way. I don't know what the hell we're talking about today. ECW, 1996, Heat Wave, 1996, from ECW. So full transparency here. So this being a retro wrestling podcast, you know, it's not topical, of course. So I can kind of record episodes whenever I want. Sometimes I'll record. Are you fucking kidding me, dude? My cat just almost knocked over my coffee. But I'll record, you know, sometimes a couple episodes in a week, which means that it might be a few weeks in between recording and releasing. And the reason I bring this up is because me and my guest recorded this about, I don't know, 3 weeks ago or so. Couldn't tell you what happened on this show. I'm recording this before I go back and edit it. And of course I could go back and look at my notes and shit to see what happened. And there are actually a few major things that happen in terms of storyline, in terms of, like, you know, just story beats, factions being started, faction warfare, things that have been built up are kind of coming to a head. There's a lot of actually very big things that happen in the grand scheme of ECW on this show. So if you've been listening, if you've been following the chronological, you know, reviews that I've been doing, which if you haven't, go to apronbump.com, go to the episodes tab, click ECW. That'll bring you to all of the chronological reviews that I've done for this lovely, lovely company so far. Starting from the very first Extreme Championship Wrestling show, all the way through 94, through 95, and all the way up until this point, mid-1996. It's been a fun ride. And like I said, in this show, we talk a lot about a lot of major things happening story-wise, but bell to bell, you know, just the second to second, like, action. I mean, to call it a clusterfuck would be generous. You know, like, it's just, it's nonsense to watch. I think it was more fun to talk about, though. I mean, in fact, the only thing I really remember about this podcast episode that you're about to hear is that me and my guest have a good old time. And who is my guest? Well, none other than Will Gray from the Botched Spots. I always fuck that up. Will Gray from the Botched Spots and Chair Shots podcast. Returning to the show, always a good time talking with Will. It's been too long since he's been on the pod. Go check out the Botched Spots and Chair Shots podcast. Fucking nailed it that time. Wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as live on Twitch, live on YouTube, UJizz, all that stuff. All of the info is going to be in the description of this podcast. They talk some current stuff, some old school stuff. Hey, they even get into some non-wrestling stuff. They do like trivia, they do games. Fun old time at the Botched Spots and Chair Shots show. Go check it out right now. Well, not right now. Listen to this. But then after that, go check out Will and the gang over there. A lot of cast of characters appeared on that show. Lots of guests that you've probably witnessed on the Apron Bump podcast. And speaking of the Apron Bump podcast, how about you give her a follow at Apron Bump on all the social medias: X, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. Subscribe, like, review, rate, jizz, subscribe to my mailing list. That's the thing. I don't send you any mail, but do it anyways in case I do. Let's see. What else? Oh, hey. Make sure to stick around to the end of the podcast to see where Heatwave 1996 ranks among the other shows of 1996. To continue the hardest promotion battle of 1996 competition between WWF, WCW, and ECW. Got a running spreadsheet, lots of criteria we look into, both overall event quality as well as just the general in-ring, out-of-ring storylines, the best, the worst, all of it we'll get into in great detail. And we'll see if Heatwave has changed the standings as they are right now. I believe WWF and ECW were tied. WCW pulling up the rear. And by the way, at the end of 1996, whoever has the most points, your boy, the hardest part of the ring, is going to purchase a championship belt of that respective company. Might wear it during the show. Might slap myself on the ass with it until it bleeds. Don't know. Maybe something in between. You know what I'm saying? But point is, you're going to want to stick around for that. It's always a good old time. And you know what else is always a good old time? Talking ECW with my boy Billiam. So let's get into it. ECW Heatwave 1996 with myself and Will from the Botched Spots and Chair Shots podcast. Yeah, well, wrestling is real life. I mean, that's the most important thing, right?
That is our life, or as much as of it we would want it to be, right?
Yeah. If you had to give up cooking or wrestling, which one would you give up?
That's a tough one. I would probably say it was easier for me to walk away from cooking professionally than I think it would be for me to give up my fandom for wrestling.
Right. Oh, so you don't cook professionally anymore?
No, I still have my catering company. We do the pop-ups and stuff, but
Okay.
I'm not cooking in a restaurant per se. No, I cook on I cater and stuff like that. So I cook on my schedule when I decide, okay, I want to pick up some gigs. So I'll, go out and do some marketing, see if somebody wants some barbecue or something. I'm doing some farmers markets and stuff this spring that are coming up. I'll be in East Nashville 3 days a week slinging barbecue then. So
Hell yeah, man.
Keeping the knives sharp, as they say, but it's definitely not the 80-hour weeks that it once was.
Are you someone that's particular about their knives? I guess you probably would be, right? Naturally.
I used to be super, way more hardcore than I am now. I was one of those pretentious assholes where I would buy a knife and then I would be solely responsible for its upkeep. I would sharpen it multiple times a week, and I kept my honing still on me. Like, my knife roll was my baby. I had this really nice leather roll that was mine. I kept all of my shit in it. It was a whole personality trait, dude. Big time.
I get it. No, I had the little Cuisinart. The color coded knives that were you could hit yourself in the wrist and it wouldn't leave a mark. But hey, man, it worked for me for a couple of years.
So my paring knife is a Cuisinart, And the reason why I say that is it's funny to me because a lot of professional chefs who see me pull my paring knife out are like, that's
Right.
that's a Cuisinart. Like you can get that at Bed Bath and Beyond. I was like, yeah, as a matter of fact, I did. It was $20, and I was
Yeah.
at an event, and my sous chef at the time broke my paring knife, and I went to Bed Bath and Beyond and replaced this like $200 knife with this $20 paring knife. And that motherfucker 15 years later is still in my knife roller to this day. It looks mangled, this shit. It's been sharpened a million times, blades all disformed, but it's still sharp as shit. And it still rolls. So I was like, $20 knife replaced a 200. Yeah, you know, a $20 Cuisinart replaced a $200 Hinkle. Who would have thought?
I mean, sometimes the cheap shit is the best. You know, knives, phones, and maybe wrestling promotions, perhaps. Speaking of which, speaking of which, ECW 1996, old heat wave action. So you got a chance to check out the show?
I went back, I rewatched. When I first pulled it up, I said, okay, it's 96, it's ECW. I kind of realized what I was getting myself into. And then I pulled the card up and started watching. And Kyle, I kind of feel like you hoodwinked me here, man. Like I was really excited to work with you and talk about some really quality wrestling. And then I was like, well, at least it's going to be fun to catch up with my friend and, you know, dog on these guys for an hour because
I looked up the card. And I saw Louis Spicoli was in 2 matches.
Oh, yeah.
And I went through my Rolodex in my head. Okay, who of the people that I know, who of my good friends would give an ounce of a shit, maybe, of Radford? And for whatever reason, your name popped up because you like a lot of the older shit. Maybe I was wrong in that assessment, but hopefully you at least know who he was.
I love indie-rific wrestling. And I watch a ton of mud shows still to this day. I love indie wrestling. And this, to me, was like the quintessential peak of what ECW was as far as like an indie promotion. And I loved every second of it. The in-ring work was not why I was happy about watching this.
No, there were some good story beats during the show. I don't know if that like carried forward with you just kind of watching this in a vacuum, but as for me who's been watching this stuff, I was like, oh, we finally got this happening and this happening, but everything in between, man, was rough. I mean, it's always like just a clusterfuck ECW is in this era, but I mean, this show in particular was I mean, we'll get into it, but yeah, lot going on, I guess.
It was great in a sense that you got to see Paul Heyman go, you know, the old phrase, like you throw a spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. This was Paul Heyman who just picked up the whole pot and was just like, ah! And then he was like, it's a card. And he just, everybody, he was like, fuck it, Spicoli, you can work twice. Whipwreck, you're going to have a long night, but people are going to watch. They're going to pay us.
Sabu's in like 3 or 4 goddamn matches all over the night. And I mean, just the way you turn this show on, the first thing you see is the Samoan Gangsta Party versus the Gangstas. So we got like, you know, gang warfare, I guess. To call this a match, I think would be a bit generous. It was on a card as a match, but man, it is just the Gangstas kicking the shit out of the Samoan Gangstas for a few minutes. Trash cans, chairs, blood, all the usual suspects. But what a way to start your viewing experience of ECW, huh?
Well, to me, I was like, oh, this is just New Jack doing New Jack things.
Oh, yeah.
Like he ran out to the ring. Like if you don't physically hear a bell or see it end, there's no way to know what this match actually consisted of because it was literally just New Jack and Mustafa running down to the ring and just beating the shit out of everybody who had a pulse. But you kind of love New Jack for that, right? That's why we like watching him work, is because that's just what he did all the time. He was unbiased as to his ass kickings he handed.
Absolutely. No, it was. I'll tell you one thing, though, that does take the charm away from matches like this is watching it on Peacock. Obviously, they got to dub over the fucking music. And with that, it also, there's like just a generic crowd track like underneath the music. So you can't hear the reactions of the crowd. You can't even hear like the bell or the sounds of the match. It's just this whatever the hell generic crisscross music, you know, that's playing in the background, which obviously in reality, it's Ice Cube, Natural Born Killers, which probably is awesome if you watch it in its original form. But here, it's just like what are we doing? But I don't know. It's what you expect from New Jack, to your
They
point.
do the dub multiple times throughout because during the main event, there's music playing,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you hear it,
Yeah,
and you're
yeah.
like, "That's almost Alice in Chains. That's almost Man in a Box." Like, and you hear the theme throughout, where the WWE and Peacock had to put their thumbprint on top of everything.
Yeah, honestly, the music isn't as bad as just the lack of crowd reaction behind it. But it's their hands are tied, I guess. If it was easy to just get access to these like VHSs or whatever, I would totally get one. But you gotta wait 3 months from China or
The
whatever the hell.
wayward days of tape trading, my friend.
Is tape trading still going? I'll go to a meeting or whatever the hell.
I 100% think there should be a Napster. I'm not going to derail this show, but there should be a Napster for wrestling fans. Because back in the day in high school, I would go rent a VHS tape and I would copy it. And then my friends at school would copy my copy. Why is there not somebody in wrestling today who's put up a Napster for pro wrestling where we're uploading just our own recordings and content for wrestling matches? And you can be like, oh, I want to see who has Will Ospreay content today. How come that's not a thing?
You know what? Well, I'll tell you. I think YouTube might have that market cornered.
I guess that's true. But specifically for wrestling, think about it.
Yeah. I mean,
they make apps for dumber shit, Kyle. Don't shoot me down.
Fight TV's kind of, yeah, though they do. But man,
I did just describe Fight TV. Never mind. You're right. We just
cut
the last 3 minutes out.
Peacock. I mean, they're just all separated, but they're there. They're there if you really want to find it. But thank God Peacock's here so that we get access to Mikey Whipwreck versus Paul Lauria, the Giant. I mean, I don't know if this is just like a pre-show deal, but this was like a 1 minute match, literally. A Mikey Whipwreck squash is quite the sight, especially since he's like the underdog guy. Like he's a fucking Triple Crown champion at this point. He's dominating this guy. Like, at what point are you just a wrestler? But I don't know.
The Giant, and can we talk about how Whipwreck was bigger than he was?
I think you're gonna be hard pressed to find anybody shorter than the Giant, Paul Lauria. But that's his gimmick. I mean, I guess it works. Well, does it? Maybe it doesn't.
It was just, it's funny to me because you watch back some of this 96 stuff and you're like, I don't remember it as a kid watching as like a 12, 13-year-old Will, but looking back on it now as an adult, I'm like, some of this was just gone from my memory.
I mean, Mikey Whipwreck wins with the Frank and Mikey in 1 minute. This is really just a match to introduce a promo from the Eliminators who come out. Pearl Harbor job to both guys. Where does total elimination rank among double team moves?
For this era of wrestling?
Just all time.
I mean, up there, but not top 10. I mean, top 10 maybe? 5? I don't know.
Name your top 5.
My top 5 double team finishers right offhand.
Yeah.
Doomsday Device. I would say FTR. The
Shatter Machine. Okay,
the Shatter Machine. I would definitely say the Team 3D with the
the 3D.
The Deadly Death Drop. I would say the Usos with the exact same move, but the way they deliver it.
You can't have both of those in your top 5.
I 100% can. Do you think the Sharpshooter and the Scorpion Deathlock are the same move? The Spear and the Gore are the same move? Then the 1D and the 3D technically can't be the same move.
That's going to throw us down a rabbit hole that I don't think we want to go down.
But the point is, I have my favorites, so I wouldn't say it's big. You know, it's a bias.
And they're wrong, but it's okay. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah,
total elimination is
better than all of those. I'm gonna I'm gonna rub your yums all over the floor.
You put me on the spot too. It would have been so embarrassing if I couldn't think of any double team tag team finishers in that moment. I would have been like, shit.
That was impressive. I wouldn't have been able to name that many that were in the vein of total elimination. But yeah, I mean, those are some good ones. The total elimination just always looks so violent. At least in this case, it did. It was just beautiful, beautiful stuff. And it's a move that people have taken and put their little spin on it over the years. But they do that to Paul Lauria here. I think they do it to Mikey Whipwreck, or maybe that's not till later. But Saturn, Cronus, The Eliminators are here to challenge the Gangstas. I believe they're the tag team champions. It wasn't very clear. But they're just challenging all the teams in the ECW, basically the Samoan Gangstas. And Saturn keeps referring to, oh no, I'm sorry, the Eliminators are the tag team champions. And Saturn is like, I'll challenge all of you guys to my belts. I mean, our belts. Are they trying to like build to tension between the two, or is he just stupid, do you think?
I think Perry Saturn is one of those guys where it's like, you're a really great worker, underappreciated, but you make Scott Steiner look like a Nobel laureate, my friend. Like, Perry Saturn was never known as a great talker, Kyle.
Oh, I think he's great. He's not a good talker, but he's a great talker.
I didn't think Perry Saturn's promo skills were at the top of the list. I did recently watch some rough 98s Halloween Havoc-ish of WCW stuff, and Perry Saturn was truly underrated throughout most of his career, all the way through. Starting, you look at 96 here, great mid-card, tag champion, and that's kind of where he stayed his entire career, was always in the hunt for those, mid-card titles. And I think he could have had a world title run. He just never got it.
Yeah, maybe it's because he's not a very tall guy, right? He's definitely under 6 feet. So maybe that held him back a little bit, unfortunately, when it came to WWF.
Especially in 90s, because they wanted those big guys then.
But no, I totally agree. Saturn's fantastic. I mean, one of the best elbow drops of all time, Perry Saturn. And
the Rings of Saturn. The same, it's the Britt Baker thing where quality.
But the Eliminators, basically this evolves into a match here, a tag title match, the Eliminators versus Mikey Whipwreck and Sabu. And Perry's like, because Mikey and Sabu faced each other at the last show, and then they shook hands after, and Saturn's like, oh, you guys want to shake hands? Why don't you team together and fuck each other's mouths, or whatever the hell he said. I'm paraphrasing.
Again, great talker.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably not that far off from what he actually said. So we have a match here, and Saturn is the one that kind of stands out to me in this one. He just feels very ahead of his time here, for better or worse, because it seems like he's just like doing a bunch of moves, like brainbusters and suplexes that are like, not as common back then. Cronus even too busts out like a pump handle suplex of sort. He's throwing out handsprings. I thought it was it was a pretty entertaining match, even though it was kind of short and maybe a little silly at times, I thought.
I was sports entertained. Watching Perry Saturn here, like I said, after watching him in 98 in WCW, it made me think that Perry Saturn was in the same vein as like your Dean Malenkos and your Chris Jerichos. When we get to the TV title, there's a lot to say about that match. But he's in that same vein where he wasn't like your ECW, go out there, put you through a table, make you bleed your own blood. But he would go out there and work a solid fucking match. And you give him 15 minutes, Perry Saturn could go out there and work for 15 minutes. And I feel like that was kind of what set him apart in a lot of ways from this ECW on this card specifically, because there was so much of that, just crash and doom wrestling show. And then you had those Perry Saturns and your Chris Jerichos, and even Mikey Whipwreck in certain places had some good moments where he was doing some traditional wrestling stuff. Yeah.
And Saturn also, before the match, he made it clear that he wanted a traditional tag team match, no tomfoolery or any of that. And of course, we get all fucking Sabu's throwing up chairs, and Sabu at one point botches a triple jump moonsault, but I don't know. He makes up for it later, but which honestly, like, I've been watching these shows, and Sabu doesn't botch as much as people make him out to be. Like, he's way better than people think he is, I think. But he busts out like a Frankensteiner, like a springboard from the top rope. And then he sets up, I think it's Cronus on like a table bridge on the outside, and goes to do a triple jump into the DDT, but Saturn shakes the ropes. So Sabu falls, and then they do the total elimination to Mikey Whipwreck and retain the tag team titles. But yes, very sports entertained. I agree. Any other thoughts on that one? That Lauria nugget?
Sabu did Sabu things. Like, you see. So Having recently seen him in AEW, I haven't watched a lot of ECW recently. It's not been on my list of to-dos. So going back and watching this one, as you said, in a vacuum, like it was nice to go back and see and be like, oh yeah, that's what Sabu looks like.
Well, this is a bit unfair because I'm telling you, 95, first half of 96, I don't know if I've seen this guy botch once. Like he's just he's leaping from the middle of the ring to the top rope, springboarding back, and maybe it falls apart at some point. I don't know. I'm still going through it, but again, he has more matches tonight, so we'll see if he makes up for this one. But fuck me, man. Up next, we got the Dudleys taking on the FBI here. Now, this was impossible to take notes on because holy shit, there was a lot of just it starts out with an Italian karaoke bistro, which I don't know, sounds like it's up your alley. Do you have any idea what that means?
I would the first thing when you say that, I think soup, salads, and like a really bomb ass like disco. Like you're gonna go in and like people are gonna be like vibing, and you're gonna be like your Italian meat sandwiches and shit. I don't know, but it sounds fun. Gabagool,
mozzarella,
mozzarella.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you.
Yeah,
I'm with you. Well, that's not. There was no gabagool here.
No,
I don't think. I mean, there might have been, for all I know.
There was Little Guido though.
That's close. We got old Lil Guido and JT Smith are out there, and Guido introduces his little brother, Big Guido, who how would you describe the aesthetic of Big Guido, Will?
The most overly stereotypical person. Like if you took some like an extra from a Bronx Tale out of the background, it was like Paulie tried his best.
Yeah, it was like a guy in the middle of transforming into the Hulk. Like he had like the tight shorts, the tank top, the tiny shoes, the shitty little boots, perhaps. No knee pads, a lot of baby oil. You know, just the white tank top. Yeah, again, very stereotypical. But boy, he was big. So can't sue him for slander. I guess.
Big Guido was the little brother of Little Guido.
Yeah, that'll.
It's not that family aesthetics don't make sense here, because we are about to discuss the Dudley boys, the Dudley family.
Ooh, Chubby Dudley, DW Dudley, Sign Guy Dudley, Big Dick Dudley, and Bubba Ray Dudley come out. Now we are in the midst of a Dudley Civil War of sorts. Big Dick and Devon are kind of fighting for control of the family. Big Dick and Devon do not like each other, of course. Because Devon has just been, kicking the shit out of all of his brothers, cheering them. A lot of what we see here. He's been doing that for a while now, and Bubba comes out with a headband that says "Fuck Devon" on it, which I thought was tremendous. So the Dudleys are in the ring, the FBI's in the ring. There's 28 guys in the ring, and then we just see Devon up in the rafters or whatever the hell on the stage because he's scared of Big Dick. Will is the thing, but he's talking shit from afar. He says, "That's my fucking family. I'll kick your big ass, Big Dick." It basically challenges him to fisticuffs, but then runs away. And I don't know. What were your thoughts watching this unfold? Because it's the thought of somebody coming into this out of context is just hilarious to me.
I don't ever remember Devon and Bubba Ray. Like, I don't remember this whole Big Dick and Devon feud at all. So I was really, I'm really, it's not that I didn't know about the Dudley family, but again, looking at it in a vacuum, I'm like, was it a clown car? Like, did they just open the door and just Dudley's just poured out? Because I felt like, I don't remember there being fucking 12 of them. But apparently there was. They all tried to make sense. And then this turned into a train wreck. Like, there was the Big Dick and Devon story, and then Devon's attacking everybody and trying to not get killed by Big Dick at the same time. Simultaneously, while we're supposed to be having a tag match of some sort.
And all interrupting the Italian karaoke bistro when you got Big Guido's here. Salvatore Bellomo is here dressed as a Viking for whatever reason. This all just sounds like things we're making up, but these are things that actually happened on a television screen. I don't even know where to begin here, man. So Devon's on the stage. Everybody's in the ring. Devon challenges Big Dick. So Big Dick goes chasing him. Like, we're on the stage. But I guess Devon just evades him somehow. Maybe Big Dick's just a big dumb idiot, and Devon, he couldn't find Devon. He lost him in the shuffle. Devon slips into the ring, chairs everybody, the FBI, his own brothers. Him and Bubba have a face-off, and then eventually Devon swings the chair at Bubba, but Bubba catches it, grabs the chair, goes to hit Devon, but Devon's like on his knees begging, no, 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 but then Devon low blows him. Big Guido's over here. He's wet. He's looking at Big Dick. Big Dick finally finds his way back to the ring, but Devon's gone now, but Big Guido's still here. Big Dick, Big Guido, big face-off, a lot of wet, a lot of moisture. What do you think this ring smells like at this point?
I'm just gonna go on a whim, and I reiterate the fact I've been to some muddy mud shows.
Yeah.
When I think about how bad that ECW ring smelled, because the canvas isn't cheap, and when I don't imagine Paul Heyman was sending that off to be cleaned regularly in any capacity. So then you think about the fact that not only was it everything that happened tonight, but it's probably weeks of stories on this ring, on this canvas that we're smelling now. This is pure 19. Think about the fact, too, in 96, people were still smoking in the 2300, too.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
no, you'll see like Shane Douglas, because he has like the yellow tights, and he'll walk in with the yellow tights, and by the time he leaves the ring, it's like a completely different color. So yeah, it's not the cleanest.
It's
not the cleanest.
But this was the grunge act of the 90s, though. Like, you didn't go to an ECW show. You wanted to see the theatrics and the Hollywood, you'd go to WWE or WCW. If you wanted a grunge rock band and, maybe catch hepatitis, like, you went to ECW.
Yeah. Well, speaking of hepatitis, I mean, this orgy that's happening in the ring, just a bunch of tie-dye and slicked back hair and JT Smith. Why not just add Hack Myers into the equation for absolutely no reason? Has no business. Are you familiar with the Shah, Hack Myers, at all?
No. Mm-mm. And in the hustle of all of this, I wouldn't say necessarily this was my potty break match, as it were, but there was so much going on. Like, it'd be like somebody new came out. Like, oh, this is how many people are out there at this point. Like, that's but that was the moral of the story for a lot of this show, though. None of this show. This was a really big train wreck with a great TV title match.
Yes, yes. Almost word for word, like what I thought about this, but the Shaw's here. He Shaws everybody, chairs Devon, but then he gets power bombs by Big Guido, and then Dick and Devon, which is really the main takeaway here, because every time Big Dick is in the ring, Devon's nowhere to be found. But they finally find each other, face to face in the same ring. But Big Guido interrupts them before they get to fight each other. Dick hits him with a chair and pins him, because I guess this is a match. And the ref counts, and I guess the Dudleys win. But whatever. But they just keep on fighting. Like, Bubba's still throwing suplexes after the match is over, and yeah, that's about it. But
the FBI introduced this big, massive Hulk giant, big little brother Guido to lose his first match to a chair shot in the middle of a train wreck. Like, this.
So you think they buried Big Guido here, is what you're saying?
If this was the IWC and they were around in 96, they would have hated this. They would have been like, why'd they bury Big Guido? I know you have a love-hate relationship with the IWC, Kyle.
So much potential in Big Guido. He's a future world champion.
And he just got buried.
Suck me off. Hey.
That's the clip right there, is hashtag free Big Guido.
Is Big Guido still around? Let me give a goog to Big Guido. Hopefully he's still alive. I feel like it's kind of like a 50-50 shot when you're watching this show.
I just got done watching the biography of WrestleMania 1, and they were talking about all the people that aren't around now. So watching 96 ECW, I'm like, yeah, there's a good chance some of these guys aren't still around.
Yeah. Hey, he's still around somehow. 6'9", 350. He's still wrestling? No shot. He's 59 years old. Man, he did not. His Wikipedia, you don't even have to scroll to look at it. But good for Big Guido, I guess. But man, if there's anybody that could get this train back on the tracks, it's Tarzan Godo taking on Axel Rotten. What's your favorite Tarzan Goto match, Will?
This reminds me of a GCW match because I've been watching a lot of that, and it's always like you'll find random Japanese wrestlers thrown in. Brett Lauderdale loves Japanese wrestling. So this felt like that from the 90s because it was a random Japanese strong style, like Japanese luchador, whatever you would want to call it, from 96, going against Axel Rotten. He was wearing FMW gear in 96. I'm not even sure if FMW was still operating in 96.
I think it might have been. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, he is most known for Tarzan Goto, most known for FMW. Apparently, he had an exploding steel cage match, or a few of them, with Onita, which sounds like a thing.
Onita's wild. I do know who Onita is. He's crazy. FMW was around till 2002. Actually, I just pulled it up.
Wow.
So they held, so they were still around in 96. I stand corrected.
Well, good for them. But Goto also wrestled a bit of sumo in 1979, which sounds like a made up fact. But I don't think he won any matches. I think he was a pretty shitty sumo wrestler. But yeah, I describe this match as garbage strong style. I don't know if you would agree or disagree, but just a lot of chairs. Well, it felt like a chair sword fight, this match. I don't know. What'd you make of this?
You're right. It's like, it's a chair sword fight would be a good way to look at it. It's like if Japanese strong style had a midlife crisis and decided it wanted to become FMW. Like, it was like trying to blend the two styles. Like, how do you go from being an FMW straight deathmatch wrestler to being an American ECW hardcore wrestler? But it was like Frankenstein wrestling is kind of what this looked like. It was produced well. You could tell the guys, Axel Rotten. I've got a love-hate relationship with the Rotten family.
Do tell.
I've met some cool guys through the business, through the interviews and stuff, and I feel like Ian Rotten specifically and Axel, like, they have such this like infamous vibe about them. 50% of the people I talk to either love them, they would give you the shirts off their back. They were the greatest, minds, blah, blah, blah. And then the other 50% are like, I wouldn't piss on you to put you out if you were on fire. So that's why I'm intrigued to try the closer I get to Ian Rotten. But, they were one of those families where it's just kind of had that aura about them. They were infamous without needing to be.
Yeah, I guess a Taipei death match will do that to a family. But yeah, Axel Rotten, I don't know. It's something about the guy. He's like a guy that's probably a good guy, but it's kind of a dick too. I don't know. I can't put my finger on why I don't really like him that much. But
he's a carny.
Yeah,
he's the quintessential example of what a carny meant to be a wrestler or wrestling promoter. In 96, you could have, if he didn't look the way he did, you could put him in 1930s in pro wrestling and he would have survived fine because he was a fucking carny.
Yeah, no, he would fit in with GCW as well. But he's not able to get the win, unfortunately, in this one. Goto wins with a brainbuster on a steel chair, which looked pretty gnarly. So Tarzan gets the win. I don't know what else he does in ECW. Maybe it's just a kind of a one-shot deal. I mean, ECW was known, especially at this time, for bringing in international talent, which at the time, I mean, you had Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko's, but you also have FMW guys like Goto, and they bring in just random kind of just Japanese guys and luchadors, and so it was their charm. Not all of them hit, but this wasn't awful, I guess. I wasn't offended by this match, I guess.
Good, not great. Kind of the whole feel for a lot of the show. Heyman credits the Eric Bischoff stealing the idea of the luchador invasion from him. He says he started doing it before Bischoff did it. I
mean, he literally stole a lot of the talent, so I can't say that he's wrong. But one guy that Eric Bischoff did not steal, Vince McMahon stole him, was Taz, who's up next. He does not have a match on this show, but Joey Styles is in the ring. He introduces Taz, claims that he couldn't find any more UFC fighters to choke out. which in the last show, he had a match with Paul Varlins, the polar bear, who was a UFC fighter, and Taz beat the shit out of him. So now Taz is here. The Taz presentation, I mean, with the big orange flag and all the young boys and Bill Alfonso. What'd you make of Taz and his presentation here?
The quote, "I don't need a weapon, my hands are weapons." Like,
pretty cool, right?
I get it. And looking back on it, you know how they say, you know, people say things like that didn't age well, or the kids will say things like that's cringe. Like I watched this back and I'm like, I thought this was way cooler when I was like 12, 13 years old than what it is.
Hey man, at the time it was cool. Okay?
It was super cool. Bill Alfonso is still in my book one of the greatest managers of all time to ever do it. He was that quintessential, you know, no fucks given. We're just here to win, cash a paycheck, and go home. You know, and he was that way whether he was the heel Bill Alfonso or the babyface Bill Alfonso. He was there to, you know, like cash checks, make money, put guys over, and go home. That was it. And the fucking whistle. I love the whistle.
You're the only one. I often watch wrestling to fall asleep, and my wife's there usually. She doesn't like it when I watch ECW in bed because it's all that. It's either this goddamn whistle over and over again, or it's the Gangstas music over and over again, and both are just awful things to fall asleep to.
How do you sleep to wrestling? It's so chaotic. I feel like I would constantly stay awake.
I fall asleep immediately, man. It's so you get the entrances and then the bell rings and then you have those first few minutes of kind of like jockeying for position. It's always at that point where it's like, okay. I don't know what it is, man. It's just it soothes me. I love
this. Something about your character, how the inner workings of your brain work, my friend. Chaos.
It's an enigma.
You are an enigma.
It's just a carton of milk in there, tipped over.
Just hanging out, being pretty, watching wrestling.
That's all that's in there.
God. To live your life, my friend.
Someone's got to do it. I know. I'm here. I'm here for you to live vicariously, I guess. Well, Taz is here. Speaking of thighs, juicy thighs on Taz is here, and he's choked out. So he's going through his resume of people that he's choked out, and like the interpromotional nature of it. He choked out Bam Bam Bigelow from the WWF, and Crowbar from WCW, and Paul Varlins from UFC, and he's basically saying that I've choked everybody out. And then Bill Alfonso, all of a sudden, this turns into fuck Joey Styles for whatever reason, because Bill Alfonso is like Joey stuck. Because I guess Bill Alfonso is like the head of the athletic commission or whatever the hell his title is at this point. Or allegedly he is. He fires Joey Styles because he's never said anything nice about him. And Joey's like, you don't have the authority to, and then Taz stands in front of him and he's like, okay, yeah, I'm fired. Which is hilarious. Joey's fucking hilarious. And Bill Alfonso introduces the new host of ECW, Joe Gertner, the stud muffin. So I guess that's going to be a thing. And Taz goes on. He's talking down, Sandman, Tommy Dreamer. He's calling all these guys out. The 911 comes out, who had left ECW for a bit, but now I guess he's back. Choke slams Joel Gertner. Choke slams Taz. But then Taz just pops back up. German to 911. Taz mission. And chokes him out. So Taz stands tall. Joey Styles, I guess, is not fired because Joel Gertner's dead. And yeah, again, a lot going on.
I don't even know where to start with this because even watching it, then like reading through, listening to you tell your description of it, I'm like,
it's a roller coaster of emotions.
It's Paul Heyman booked his wrestling shows the way Jerry Springer booked his talk show. You know what I mean? Like looking back on it, like, pulling the curtain back, you think about the backstage heat, like Paul Heyman had no trouble putting two guys in the ring that he knew had problems with each other. And he always wanted to market off of it. Not that this was any point of that, but I'm just talking in reference to the few pieces of my ECW memory that I've picked up. And it's like, I liked that about him because a lot of this stuff, they're beating the shit out of each other. It's entertaining. And I look back on it and I'm like, I wonder how much of this was them beating the shit out of each other because they genuinely wanted to.
Yeah, because 911, he was on the ring crew and he left ECW because some of the ring crew were being mistreated. I forget what the exact. Just doing a quick search here if it like pops up. I don't know, but it was
No handshakes, no hot dogs.
Something like that. But they were 911 and Taz were in the middle of a feud, and I guess Taz was gonna beat him, but then 911 left, so it kind of left Taz with his dick in his hand a little bit. But now he's back, so who knows? I don't even know what comes of this, but I don't know. I love a good 911 choke slam. ECW, the crowd did too. They enjoyed the simple things. And I guess, they hated Taz too. The fuck you Taz's chants were ringing throughout that arena. So it was good stuff here. Again, a bit silly, a bit disjointed. And it felt like they were just combining a lot of different things into one segment, which is kind of consistent with the rest of the card. I feel like it's just like a bunch of different storylines all crammed into one thing. But again, Taz's presentation, I love it at this point. He feels like a legit badass, even at his size. That's super impressive, I think.
So let me ask you a question. Having watched this and having a little bit more of understanding of the story, where the fuck is RVD? Where was he at in 96?
He's around. So he's relatively newly on the scene. I think he debuted maybe like 5 months ago. And he's had some really great matches with Sabu. And I think they're 1-1, maybe. I think they've each won a match. But they're building to a stretcher match between the two, RVD and Sabu, which I think is on the next show. They mentioned it in a later match, but RVD was not on this particular show. I don't know if he was just wrestling somewhere else or what have you, or they just needed more Louis Spicolli time. So
that was it. We got two Spicolli matches, but no Rob Van Dam. I was just my vacuum was confused when I got through this card. I was like, how did I not see Rob Van Dam in the 90s on an ECW card?
No, RVD's here. He's still wearing a gi, and so he's not in his final form yet, but he's around. He's around.
He's still growing.
Yes, nurturing. The seed has been planted, some may say. But speaking of planting seeds, I'd love to plant a seed and Francine, huh?
Oh,
come on. We're talking about cum. The television title match is a 4-way elimination match. We got the champion, Chris Jericho, facing off against Shane Douglas, Too Cold Scorpio, and Pitbull number 2. Pitbull, of course, with Francine. And we brought it up briefly before, but this is by far the bright spot of the show. This was a super long match, but it was also the best thing on the show, so I wasn't too mad about it. But a lot of stuff happening here. Overall, what you think of this?
I think that this was 2 matches. This was the match up until the point Jericho got eliminated, and then the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sound like a Jericho homer because I'm not a big Jericho fan in 2023, but looking back and watching again, just rewatching Havoc from 98 and seeing Jericho there as the TV champion in WCW, like this 96, 97, 98 Jericho was a badass. And he could walk the walk and talk the talk. And I think this was the signal of it. Because seeing him in 98, then going back 2 more years to see him in ECW, and he's doing the exact same stuff just as well. And I know it's really cheesy to say it, but like, how come he wasn't bigger sooner?
Yeah, I'm not too familiar. I know he went to WCW and did all the cruiserweight stuff, but again, unfortunately, it might just be his size. He was just shorter, but I don't know. He made a lot of what he was given. He carried that cruiserweight division in WCW. I don't think he's in ECW too much longer after this.
His debut in WCW was 96, late 96 or early 97. So, we're getting there.
We're getting there. But, Jericho looked great. And, there's a lot of... So, Shane Douglas... So, Scorpio was a TV champion for forever. I think at the time, he was the longest reigning TV champion, and Shane Douglas beat him, but then Pitbull number 2 beat Shane Douglas, and then Chris Jericho beat Pitbull. So these guys have all been fighting back and forth for this title for a while now. So now we're all just in one match, and it was, I think they said 27 minutes into the match where it was the first elimination. So this whole thing must have been at least 40. And like you said, Jericho, the champion, was the first guy eliminated. He gets eliminated with a tombstone from Scorpio, and then the tumbleweed leg drop, which is like I don't know, a Phoenix splash leg drop of sorts, which looked pretty gnarly. I don't know if he got him completely, but probably would have killed him if he did. So
Thank goodness he didn't.
But no, I agree. Like the first like big chunk of this match is kind of just everybody taking turns. You know, they're tagging in and out. Shane Douglas doesn't want any of Pitbull because before the match, I should also say, Pitbull was coming out. Shane Douglas attacks him with a chair during his entrance, so they're already at odds. So Shane Douglas is doing all he can to stay out of the ring when Pitbull's in the ring, and then vice versa. So he's doing that classic heel shit. Jericho's eliminated. 27 minutes in. Some stuff. And any spots in particular stick out to you in this one that you remember?
No, not again. Like I said, it seemed like the first, I guess you said 27 minutes up until the point Jericho got eliminated. It seemed like the back half of that match was really short compared to the front.
Yeah.
It seemed real quick. I'm a Too Cold Scorpio fan. I wrote about his issues with Hawk in Korea. So when they got in a straight up fist fight and almost got arrested while they were in North Korea for the Collision in Korea stuff in New Japan. Yeah. So I kind of late in life got into Too Cold Scorpio. So this was a first watch for me for his career to see it at this point. I hadn't seen him work like this. And looking back on it, this wasn't too far separated from all of that happening in that 94 to 96 range. So it's like, okay, this was kind of a cool little like glimpse as to what he was doing in the mid 90s. I liked that. You think about what Shane Douglas has done and does as far as like coming into ECW, he was always the franchise. So it wasn't that the back half of the match wasn't memorable in a sense that they weren't as good workers as Chris Jericho. It was that first 2/3 of the match was so focused on Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
Almost. They're not focused on him, but when the champion was eliminated, it was like, then they landed the plane.
Yeah. No, the work rate, quote unquote, was in the first half. And then it evolved or devolved, however you look at it, into storyline, soap opera type shit, which is what I'm all about. So I'm not complaining, but
you love your sports entertainment.
Oh man. I'm a JAS member all the way, brother. All the way. Give me the hat. Give me the dance. But Douglas and Pitbull actually end up working together at some point. They do the super bomb, which is traditionally the Pitbull's double team finisher, to Scorpio, because there's a period where Scorpio was just taking everybody out, dominating. So Douglas and Pitbull work together to eliminate Scorpio with the super bomb. And now we're down to just Shane Douglas and Pitbull number 2. We get some chairs. I mean, Pitbull sets up 2 chairs to form a table of chairs and then power bombs Shane Douglas through them. They brings out a table, sets it up in the corner. And then Shane Douglas fights out, goes for a belly to belly. But Francine distracts the ref. Douglas pulls her in the ring. Pitbull grabs Shane Douglas, flips him over his head. And that goddamn Francine turns her back on Pitbull number 2, throws some mysterious powder in the eye of Pitbull, and takes her skirt off to unveil her underwear that says franchise on it. So, man, she's bamboozled Pitbull, neutered Pitbull, some may say. And Pitbull 1 comes out, who had been injured. He has like an injured arm or some shit. Douglas gives Pitbull number 1 a DDT on the arm. And then the Pitbulls take out Douglas and give Francine a super bomb through the table that's in the ring. Franchise back in, takes out Pitbull number 1, belt to Pitbull number 2, piece of the table to Pitbull number 2. Pitbull just keeps kicking out. Shane Douglas has the brass knucks. He hits Pitbull number 2. He kicks out. Chain to the face. He kicks up. He kicks out. Pitbull number 2 hulks up, misses a kick in the corner, and then Shane Douglas hits the belly to belly on Pitbull number 2 for the win. So we got a new TV champion and a new lady for Shane Douglas. Thoughts?
You should be backing up Joey Styles. There should be no reason why Styles called this by himself. There's no reason at all. What were you doing in 96, Kyle? That's the question.
I was probably shitting my pants somewhere. I was 3 years old. Probably watching Barney, if I had to guess.
Yeah. See, maybe not quite there yet. Was this a callback to SummerSlam? When Miss Elizabeth pulled the skirt off and she had the panties on underneath it and was shaking her ass around? Was that what this was? Was that their like homage, like tipping their hat at SummerSlam '88? Because that was only like 96, 8. That's what, 8 years. So it's still fresh. ECW and WWE like to do that back and forth shit, didn't they? I think it was you who posted a tweet about it. Like WWE literally almost carbon copied an ECW story like a week apart. Yeah. Wasn't it you who took me down that rabbit hole?
No, yeah, it was the foot. Like Raven used his boot as a weapon, which I guess to be fair, that was kind of a common thing back then. But this is like a week before Diesel ripped the leg off of Vachon, Mad Dog Vachon, and used it as a weapon. So it could have been just a coincidence. Also, I did just watch the Raw after Bash at the Beach 1996, and they did a Who's the Third Man deal leading to their pay-per-view. So everybody's stealing from everybody at this point.
Plagiarized as fuck. All over the place.
Yeah, who gives a shit? But yeah, just a lot going on. I had a lot of all caps typing, if you couldn't tell, in the later half of my notes. Because I was into it, man. I was revved up. I mean, Francine, you could see what she had for lunch when she took her skirt off and then throwing the Mr. Fuji powder at Pitbull, and Pitbull one's back. And
all hell broke loose.
Good shit, pal.
Business is about to pick up, friend.
I think so. And business is about to pick up with Radford. Louis Spicoli taking on El Puerto Riqueño. This match might have been 20 seconds. Cuts right, like, I guess Louis Spicoli was cutting a promo before the match, and it cuts like mid-promo, and they just cheap shots Puerto with the mic, and clotheslines, Death Valley driver, and chair shot to the head, and then pins Puerto with one finger, because fuck him, I guess. So just the intro to Louis Spicoli here, who I guess was just I don't know when he was released from WWF, but weird random sighting of this fella here.
The Spicoli driver.
Yes, of course. Did he invent it, or did he just popularize it?
There were like 12 dudes doing the DVD at this point. Even Saturn did one. Oh, I can't name them all. What are you? Like,
name your top 20 Death Valley drivers.
Give me your top 20, and I'm like, all right, Perry Saturn and Dean Malenko.
John Cena.
Well, that's what we need to do. Sit down one day and just list who's your favorite super kick. No.
Top 100.
Spicoli was one of those guys where, again, like I mentioned before, if I sat down and turned the rocks over and tried to research it, I might remember some stuff that happened. However, looking at this again in a vacuum, like my brain was just seeing them in an ECW arena, I guess. I was really just kind of like, what am I watching? And then immediately after the squash match happened, this is one of those things where we've seen Sabu now multiple times. We've seen Spicoli a couple times. And that's around the time I wrote down, where's Rob? Because I brought it up earlier, but I was like, I couldn't remember what the fuck he was doing in 96, but I digress.
No, yeah. Spicoli, he would unfortunately pass away like 2 years after this. So he had a really short run, but I guess he made a mark because, he's a name that I hear all the time. But he looked fine. This is leading into the next match when so Spicoli kicks the shit out of this jobber, gets on the mic, and or no, he doesn't get on the mic. Sabu just sprints out there with a neck brace on because I guess he was injured in his previous match, because why wouldn't he be? So Sabu sprints out there, and now we have a match: Sabu versus Louis Spicoli. And Spicoli, he's caught off guard, but he takes advantage of the neck injury, doing a bunch of neck breakers and shots to the neck. But then the last like 90% of this match is just Sabu flying all over the place, doing all sorts of triple jump moonsaults, triple jump Frankensteiners. He's jumping into the crowd with the chair. He's doing all sorts of shit. But again, Sabu doing Sabu things. But I think this performance was better than his previous one, I would say.
I think the pre-production meeting for this match was Sabu walking up and going, "I'm going to do these things. You catch me so I don't die."
Yeah.
That's how this match watched, because there were the people who don't like wrestling because people, like the whole thing, finishers don't mean anything. You can kick out of everything. Like, don't watch this match.
Well, I don't know how many pinfalls there were in this match. It was a lot of outside shenanigans. I mean, particularly the triple jump with the chair into the crowd hitting Louis was pretty sick. But yeah, you're right. It's just Sabu doing his shit, and Louis gets like one move. I think he just jumps off the top rope and does like a flying front flip. Just throws his body at Sabu, kind of hits him. Maybe gets a few suplexes in. I mean, Louis, he looked great. He looked in shape. He looked jacked. But eventually Sabu wins with a triple. So he has Louis Spicoli set up on the top rope. Sabu runs up the chair, up to the top rope, and DDTs Louis off the top rope, and then hits an Arabian facebuster with a chair for the win. You can just throw Arabian in front of anything he does, and that's accurate. But so Sabu wins. Louis looked good, I guess. They shake hands, and yeah, Sabu, right?
The Arabian facebuster.
My favorite facebuster of all time.
Maybe your top 10 facebusters, Kyle.
X Factor, Pedigree. Yeah.
Was this your second favorite match of the night?
Ooh, maybe.
Because my favorite was the TV title.
Yeah, mine too, for sure. Maybe, man. I mean, the Eliminators match with Whipwreck and Sabu. No, I'd probably put Louis versus Sabu above that. I mean, it's not, the difference between the best match and the worst match isn't exactly a wide
There's not
disparity.
a wide arc here.
No, it's a pretty straight line, but it's a rather hilly graph, I would say. But well, that brings us to the main event. Rage in the Cage. So did you follow it's a 6-man tag. Brian Lee versus Raven. I'm sorry. Brian Lee, Raven, and Stevie Richards versus Terry Gordy, Sandman, and Tommy Dreamer. Did you follow the rules at all?
No. Again, in a vacuum, like the commentator, again, I applaud Joey Styles. The man was a genius on the mic. He did a great job. He did so much. And WWE just pissed all over that guy.
Yeah.
But watching this match, this match in general was as hard to keep up with as the Dudley Boys match was, because Stevie Richards at one point was up on the stage thing where Devon wasn't. That's how spread out this match got. And it was fun, but it was a wrestling match in a sense that there was a ring and a pinfall technically and a cage and teams, but there wasn't a whole lot of wrestling match in this match.
So I'm gonna, it doesn't matter if it's in a vacuum or not. I've been watching the ECW TVs leading up to this show. I still didn't know what the hell was going on. So the premise here, so Raven and Sandman start in the ring, in the cage. There's a cage there, by the way. Stevie Richards and Terry Gordy start on the stage, and Tommy Dreamer and Primetime Brian Lee start on the outside somewhere. And he was mentioning something about because Stevie and Gordy are on the stage, and it was the first man to touch the floor gets to go in the cage. And then Dreamer and Primetime are having a separate Falls Count Anywhere match, and whoever wins that can get in the cage. But nobody's pinning anybody. Nobody makes any hullabaloo about whoever touches the floor. Everybody's just getting in the cage eventually. Some people are getting out of the cage. The title's on the line, but only if Stevie Richards gets pinned, who is not the champion. Raven's the champion. Raven gets pinned, doesn't lose the championship because Stevie Richards was the only one that could have lost it for him. The rules were fucking stupid, and it was like it was fun. It was ECW at its most ECW here, but I don't know.
At one point, Blue Meanie was down in front of the ring, and he was like shaking the cage and going crazy. And I was like,
You mean Blue Dust?
Blue Dust.
Yes,
Where did he come from?
from the Bowery, I think.
He just showed up. I was just watching. Blue Meanie's just out there shaking cages. I was like, he wasn't even in a match.
Yeah, that's a
just
hard
showed
fellow
up.
to miss too. For him to sneak out there without seeing him, I mean, that's impressive. Maybe he repelled from the ceiling. Who knows?
Owen Hart
Who
style.
knows? I hope not. I mean, an ECW arena, it's probably not as bad. He could have landed on something.
He could have taken that bump and been okay in the ECW arena.
Oh, he would have bounced. That ring
Blue
probably would
Meanie?
have collapsed.
Oh,
Yeah.
He just hit and splashes. Like
It's finished. Man, mine. I don't even know where to start here with my notes. I mean, it was not a lot to follow. It's just a bunch of carnage. I don't know, anything stick out to you in this one as noteworthy?
the Mind Games Raven was playing, the little kid coming out dressed like Raven.
Yes.
I thought that was because this looking in some notes, and like I said, I tried to turn over a Little Rock, so I understood what the fuck all of this meant. What I could figure out was Sandman and Raven had been playing, like Raven had some shit done with Sandman's family.
Yes.
And it was, so I was like, okay, that's cool. And he comes out and he does the Raven cross, and he's like, looks like a little baby Raven. And then you look at after the match, Primetime lost his effing mind. Like, he just pretty much hulked up and just attacked everybody. It didn't matter.
Oh, man. All the women that were outside, because you had Missy Hyatt with Sandman, you have Beulah and Kimona Wanalea with Tommy Dreamer. At the end of the match, Primetime Brian Lee is just choking them all. I don't know what happened with that. But, I mean, there's a door came into play. Somebody just had a door and was hitting people with it. Pile drivers. It seemed like whenever a big move would start to happen inside the ring, they would like cut away to Dreamer and Primetime just fighting in the crowd. Casually, Stevie Richards just jumps off the top of the cage, but like gets gut shotted by Gordy on the way down.
The Primetime Tommy Dreamer spot off the cage through the tables where he almost killed Dreamer because he went at an angle and he only made it through like 1.5 of the tables and then just went straight to the floor.
So if I saw this correctly, they were smart about it because this is like a month after. It's like somewhat of a famous spot where Primetime chokeslams Tommy Dreamer off of like a balcony through a bunch of tables. So it seemed like they were trying to recreate that here, but just off the cage through tables that were set up by Blue Dust and Stevie Richards or Nova, whoever set it up. But they set up 3 tables on top of each other. But then I think they set a 4th one up like behind it for like in case he like overshot it, which I think kind of happens. I don't know, but it looked very contrived though because he had to like shimmy his way on top of the cage and he just kind of got pushed off. But I mean, it was a convincing way to take out Dreamer, I guess, because it did look pretty gnarly.
He definitely got some color, that's for sure.
Playing in a pool of his own blood, as Joey Styles said. Yeah, you brought up Tyler, who, Sandman's son, because Dreamer handcuffs Raven to the top rope against the cage, which is an homage to the previous Heat Wave in 1995, where Dreamer just cracked Raven in the head as he was handcuffed. But he's unable to do that here because Tyler gets in the way. Dreamer and Sandman bicker, and then this allows Raven to take advantage. There's just chaos all over the arena. Yeah, the table spot happens, and then somebody gets DDT'd in the ring. You can't really see who. But then there's a 3 count, and then Sandman's music plays. So I guess Sandman wins. He beats Raven. But again,
doesn't win the title.
Because fuck him, I guess. And then Primetime proceeds to choke all the women, and Terry Gordy and Primetime fight in the ring, and then Tommy Dreamer's dead, and then that's the show. So very that's what you want from ECW, I guess, though, huh?
I like I said, I wasn't disappointed. I knew what I was getting myself into. I agreed to mid-90s ECW. I wasn't going to get, This wasn't the Attitude Era gearing up into the Attitude Era that we all remember and love. This was definitely ECW really catching their stride. And I think if you look at it in a vacuum for what it is, taking out the production value and the style, this could have been a GCW show. This could be a CZW show. This could be one of your top tier indie promotions running in the 2300 today. And I think there's a lot to be said about Paul Heyman and the style that he was booking then, because that's the kind of shit that's selling out the 2300 still to this day in 2023. So he was doing something right.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I would say like ECW at this point in 1996, I mean, this is a week after Hogan turns, but other than that, ECW's got some of the best storylines going in wrestling at this point, and they do have the potential to have good matches. I mean, Sabu and RVD have had some great ones. Shane Douglas and Scorpio had a great one the last show. Everything Raven and Dreamer does is really good when it's like not as cluttered as this. So they got a lot of good stuff, ECW. This show in particular, it was really just all over the place. But again, there were like some storyline pivots that were interesting, and the TV title match was great. But yeah, a lot of, just to call it a clusterfuck, I think would be an understatement.
But it was a clusterfuck that got us together, Kyle. That's all that matters.
And we got to see Francine Tiny. So
it did. That was nice. Yeah. We got to see the Gangsters just mow through people, which you love. Who doesn't like watching New Jack? You got to see Sabu do Sabu things. You got to see a dude who isn't Italian pretend to be Italian.
How dare you? Who are you referring to? No, you're not talking about JT Smith. He is 100% gabagool. You know?
Gabagool. He's about as Italian as my Jewish ass.
Well, speaking of Jews, I don't have a segue for that one, but sometimes I just hope it comes into my head. And
just you got to play with it, man. I love it. Let it go. Be you.
Bit. Hey, if you had to grade the show from a scale to S to F, what do you think you would give it?
For me personally, I liked it. I'm not mad at all about it. It's definitely sad. Pass fail, I would definitely give this a pass. It was fun.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've seen enough GCW lately covering the indies that I feel like I said, in a vacuum, this is just a GCW show looking back at it. You know what I mean? Right. All Brett's doing is just copying what Heyman was doing in the 90s. So to me, this definitely passed. It wasn't for the technical in-ring work, or the long-term stories, because I had no idea what I was watching really, but for the entertainment value of the matches, it's a pass. I wouldn't say this is like a complete failure of a pay-per-view.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, looking at this, I mean, I feel like Sabu he ought to be your favorite wrestler, because all he does is botch spots and performs chair shots. But speaking of which,
that's it.
Where can everybody find your beautiful face and smell what you're cooking? Well, over there at Botched Spots and Chair Shots.
Kyle, you are a master of a segue, and you are the master of my heart. I love you. I appreciate the time, sir. Thank you for having me. If you enjoyed it and you want to find my shenanigans elsewhere, you can check my link tree at the Will Gray. When you go there, you'll find all my shenanigans for Botched Spots and Chair Shots and Rivet City Radio.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I appreciate having you. Hey, quick question. Do you put sugar in your cornbread or do you not?
You do not put sugar in cornbread. You put your sugar in your tea, and that's it. You do not put sugar in cornbread. You're not making a corn cake. You're making cornbread.
Maybe you're not.
I can do your corn cake.
Once again, thank you to Will from the Botched Spots and Chair Shots podcast for joining me on this lovely, lovely road of ECW. Go check out Will. Go check out the Botched Spots and Chair Shots podcast. All the info in the description below. He's a good boy. Great group of cats over there. Always an entertaining show. Go check it out. Check me out at Apron Bump on all the social medias. You'll also find that in the description below. And hey, what else is there to do but hit that jingle, Bartholomew? WCW, ECW, WWF. Who's the hardest promotion? Eric or Vince or Paulie? I think we can agree, though, it's mostly shit. Alrighty then, let's grade this show, shall we? First of all, let's just lay out the scene. Let's set the scene. Currently, first of all, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to follow along with my spreadsheet here. But I'll also walk you through it if you're listening in audio land. Currently, WWF and ECW are leading with 10 points, WCW with 2 points. Lots of year to go, though, and we will get into it and see if anything changes here. But first things first, before we get into anything else, let's grade the show, shall we? Shall we? From a grade of S to F. S being one of the best shows of all time, to F being the drizzling shits. So we've had a couple of we've had a run of pretty good shows, a lot of B's recently, a couple C's in there, but you know, an A at WrestleMania. I mean, we haven't had a bad show since ECW like earlier in the year. So, but where do we land on this show? So I'm gonna tell you right now, this is not a great show, but it's not. I was gonna say it's not the worst show, but let's not get carried away here. Let's see here. Let me just review my notes. Let me just take a quick scan, make sure I'm taking everything into account. We got a lot of, nonsensical gimmicks and stipulations. We got the blood and the weapons, which is kind of the ECW deal, so that's not really a mark against them per se. Kind of just staying idle in a sense. Louis Spicolli makes an appearance, but how valuable was that? Sabu wrestles a few times, is fine. The TV title match was really good, and the Francine turn was really significant and well done. Tarzan Godo did nothing for me. 911 returns, confronts Taz. That's a big deal. Dudley Boys, he finally got Devon, Big Dick coming to a head. Mikey Whipwreck bullshit in the beginning. Stupid Gangstas. Yeah, so I'm thinking the ceiling here is C. It's between C and D. I'm gonna say that. I think if I would, so this is like if I was watching this show in a vacuum, right? This is a kind of an awful show. It's kind of a fucking terrible show. But there are, like I said, there's significant story beats that happen within it. And I think that should go towards the quality of the show, because that means there's intent behind the things, there's coherence in the storylines, and things keeping you coming back to the show. I think that all accompanies, the quality of the show that we're grading here. So I'm going to say C here. I'm going to let that sit for a second, see how it looks. See how I'm going to try it on, see how it fits. ECW Heatwave 1996 with a C. Bash at the Beach was a B. King of the Ring was a B. Great American Bash 1996 from WCW was a C. So basically we're saying that Great American Bash and Heatwave were the same. What the hell happened at Great American? Great American Bash was not that great of a show. So I think a C is fair. You know what I'm saying? I think C is fair here. So what does that mean? Well, now we look at each promotion and see which promotion currently has the highest average grade for their pay-per-views or their events or what have you. Currently, WWF still has the highest grade with a B. WCW and ECW are virtually tied. WCW has them; they're more like a C plus, where ECW is like a C. So that being said, WWF still maintains the lead there, and that is one criteria of many. So I'll walk you through the points and how we divvy them out as we go along. Best overall average pay-per-view grade, WWF wins that, and they get 6 points. They maintain those 6 points, so no changes to the score. And like I said, WWF has 10, ECW has 10, WCW has 2. Best pay-per-view, WrestleMania 12. As of right now, that's the only A grade, so we're going to keep that. So WWF maintains that at 2. Worst pay-per-view, still tracking WCW Super Brawl as the worst, so WCW maintains that -1 point. In-ring. So this is just a more general approach to it. Which company has the best overall in-ring product? Currently, we are saying that ECW has the best. I don't think there's anything we're thinking. ECW. I think if anyone is competing with this at this point, WCW and their cruiserweight division is putting out some good stuff. WWF is fine, but it's still kind of an idol. I don't think anything would shift it, forward or back. I don't think WCW has an overall. I don't think the in-ring is good enough to kind of overtake ECW, because ECW has like the TV title, but you also have people from Japan and Mexico coming in and out. You got even like the Raven and Tommy Dreamer type stuff is always pretty good. The crowd's always into it. I think ECW maintains that as of right now. So they maintain those 4 points. Best match of the year, Shawn Michaels versus Diesel in Your House 7. I would say the best match on Heatwave 1996 was the TV title by a country mile. Easy for me to say. I do not think that is better than Shawn versus Diesel at In Your House 7, though. So WWF maintains those 2 points. Worst match of the year, Ultimate Warrior versus Goldust, also at In Your House 7. Was any match worse than that? I don't think so. Let me run through the matches here in my notes just to make sure we're not missing anything. And for context, we also take into account, the spotlight the match is given, the stakes. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, Paul Lauria versus Mikey Whipwreck. I don't know. You could say that's worse, maybe, or the Gangstas versus the Samoan Gangsta Party. Sure, that's probably worse, maybe. There's a conversation to be had, but those are like preliminary matches that don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. No titles on the line or anything. So overall, Warrior versus Goldust, I think, is the bigger abortion of those. So, Louis Piccoli, Sabu was fine. Yeah, the Rage in the Cage, the stipulation was stupid, but I don't think that outdoes Warrior and Goldust just fucking fiddle fucking for 28 minutes, it felt like. So, yeah, Warrior and Goldust, they keep that. So WWF keeps that -1 point. Let's see here. Where are we at? Roster star power. So best overall roster, and we take into account the star power of the roster, but also the quality, the technical ability, the overall ability. Just who has the most vastly impressive roster at this point. Currently, we're tracking WCW. So now we are in NWO territory. So Razor's there, Diesel's there. Also got the Cruiserweight division really coming into its own. Rey Mysterio is becoming a big deal. He won the title from Dean Malenko at the show following Bash at the Beach. You got Juventud and Psychosis around. You got Benoit. You got Eddie. You got Regal. You got the Steiner brothers. You got a lot of good action going on, but also you got the star power of the Hogans and the Macho Mans and the Flairs and all that stuff. So I think overall, WCW still maintains that. Even though ECW's got a lot of good talent, of course, WCW maintains that with 4 points. Wrestler of the Year, Shawn Michaels currently tracking. I mean, if anyone on this show would push him out, the only competition I would say, you could maybe say like a Shane Douglas, perhaps. Eliminators, I don't know. I don't think anybody's outdoing Shawn Michaels at this point yet, but we'll see. We got it upcoming In Your House, and Shawn's in a 6-man town. We'll see. We'll see what happens here, but I think Shawn Michaels keeps that. The WWF maintains those 2 points. You fuck off. Worst wrestler of the year, Ultimate Warrior. Yeah, I think it's gonna take a lot to knock Warrior off. I'm gonna tell you that right now. So WWF keeps those -1 point, or that -1 point. Out of ring. So we're looking at gimmicks, characters, promos, storylines. Best overall, ECW. And look, I've been saying it over and over again, but there's a lot of good storyline pivots in this show. And I think ECW is doing it better. Like from top to bottom, I think ECW has the best collection of storylines going. Really interesting characters. You got Taz doing the shoot fight stuff. You got Raven taking Sandman's son, making him join a cult. The Dudleys, the faction warfare with the FBI, the internal faction warfare within the Dudleys, among other things. You got the Gangsta, you got the tag team divisions pretty hot, the TV title, like the Pitbulls and France, like all that stuff, right? ECW just got a really plentiful kind of set of stories going on right now. More so than look, we got the NWO going on, but we're still very early days. This show is a week after the NWO was kind of started. So we're not best in the world yet, but we'll keep an eye out for that. So I think ECW keeps those 4 points for now. Best character storyline is Taz. What did Taz do in this show? Confronted 911, choked him out. So I think we're kind of solidifying him. He's got the great presentation with, the Team Taz, his young boys. You got Bill Alfonso. You got the big orange flag, the towel, the overall style, the approach, calling out Sabu, like a lot of good stuff with Taz at this point. So I think on this show, nothing on this show would really push it either way. Maybe the Dudleys, there's some competition here, but I think it's ECW regardless. So ECW keeps that at 2 points. Worst character storyline, the Dungeon of Doom. Anything knock that out? I don't think so, man. I don't think there's really any bad storylines going on in ECW at this point. So yeah, fuck you, Dungeon of Doom. You stay there. So they get -1 point. So overall, no changes. Look at that. Look at us go. WWF and ECW still tied with 10 points. WCW with 2. But lots a year to come, ladies and gentlemen. So that about wraps her up, man. ECW, Heatwave, 1996. What do you guys think? It's chilly. It's chilly outside, but it's hot in the ECW place. What's it called? The ECW Arena. Because it's Heatwave. Man, that would have been a good way to start out this episode, huh? Maybe not. Maybe it's good that I've buried it at the end. Yeah, I think it's about all we got. Check out the YouTube, by the way. Should have fucking plugged this in the beginning. I could splice this and put it in the beginning, but I won't. This is a little treat for you guys who still hanging around. Check out the YouTube. Got some new videos up. Gonna start putting out some more short form stuff. I did a theme song quiz. I did a list. I listed all of the European champions, or at least I tried to. So I'm gonna start doing more stuff like that. I'm open for input, open for things that you would like to see me do. I got some ideas cooking, some what you would call it, kind of more short form stuff, maybe YouTube exclusive type stuff, maybe some decent production value going on, maybe a Deadliest Warrior spoof of sorts, don't know. But keep an eye on that. Towards the end of the year, I should be releasing the first episode of a new series, name pending. So got a lot of stuff coming. I'm heading into year number 4. Wait, I think near year number 4 of doing this podcast. So I'm gonna start making moves in this next year. Having a good time, but I think we're gonna start branching out and start broadening what the Apron Bump does. So get on the bandwagon now is what I'm saying. You dirty assholes. You're listening to my show. I don't know why I'm insulting you. That's about all I got. Take care, everybody. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, for listening, for watching, for tasting, and for touching. So do all those things again to me, and then I'll come. I don't know. Thank you guys. I gotta go. Thank you guys for listening. Love you all.
Yeah.
I'm hard.
Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing like it. Let's get it started. It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing like it. Let's get it started.